Hey everyone, this is Dennis Domzalski here, doing another video on some of the illustrations in my latest book, which is called Disturbers Row. Disturbers Row, if you don't know, and if you're new to the channel, it's basically about five seventh grade boys, the Disturbers, and how they cause trouble, wreak havoc, and just drive their abusive and authority-loving nuns insane. And that's what we do. The other part of the book is, also intertwined with that story is the freedom we had as kids. And again, we were in seventh grade, 1966, 67. But the freedom we had as kids in the city of Chicago, at least for us in our blue-collar neighborhood, to roam our neighborhood at will, to roam our city at will. No adults needed, wanted, or even wanting to be with us. So we were free to be kids without adult interference, and it was wonderful. And that is a time that is now gone. It doesn't exist anymore. So these are, there's a story behind each and one of these illustrations. They're done by a guy by the name of Dan Florentino, who's a terrific artist. There are more than 90 of these in the book, and you'll love them. So let's get to the first one of this series. Okay, this is Sister Mary Yvonne, evil, vile, mean, just hates kids, and pretty not that physically abusive, but really emotionally abusive more than anything else. But what's going on here is a girl is being punished, if you will, or cleansed of sin. That's basically it. That's a great way to put it. She's being cleansed of sin. The sin is hairspray. That's right. She wore hairspray to school. She's in fifth grade. And Yvonne spotted her while we were standing in the hallway during a afternoon recess, waiting to go to the bathroom. Anyway, the nuns hated makeup. They hated hairspray. And any girl who wore it, or any girl who passed notes to boys or pass notes to their other girlfriends saying, "Hey, I like Bob," or "I like Dave," or whatever. Boy, the nuns clobbered them, told their parents, and basically called them whores. So in this case, if you wore hairspray and they really saw it, they drag you into the bathroom and scrub your hair out, usually with a bar of white ivory soap. And if that was there for hairspray. For makeup, they scrub your face with ivory soap and a washcloth, and they made sure that they scrubbed it pretty raw, just to mess with you. So let's see what the next slide holds. Yeah, this is a great one. We're in third grade, me and my buddy Jim Massiola. I said before that we had the freedom to roam. Well, it's third grade. Me and Jim are eight probably years old, and maybe 9, I can't remember. But we're roaming our neighborhood now by ourselves after school and on weekends. Me and Jim and a few other guys. This we managing. We're crossing a busy street, which is this one in our neighborhood was Pulaski Road. Uh, Called main arterials by city planners, but we call them busy streets loaded with traffic. And they're dangerous to cross. But third grade, we're crossing these things. We go in a big industrial area about a block and a half from our street, and it had railroad tracks and then railroad spur into a vast area with factories, foundries, a massive decal factory, a giant baking plant. There were oil tanks there. There are all kinds of stuff over there. Uh, and it was cool. So there was a vacant lot uh, surrounded by factories. It was strewn with junk. Excuse me, cans, TVs, furniture, rags, old sofas, coffee cans, chunks of concrete, rocks, ball, you name it. If it was junk, it was in this lot. Broken glass everywhere. There were holes dug there. I don't know why they were, but we thought they might have been old foxholes, maybe made by bombs or hand grenades. And of course, we always, you know, hid ourselves in these things and figured they were foxholes and that we were shooting the enemies from them and stuff like that. Well, anyway, one day, who knows? Uh, we we make a tent out of some sticks and other junk we find there, and of course a really ratty, despicable, disgusting blanket. And back then we liked to start fires. It's cool. I mean, you know, you got matches, you get a little wood or paper together, you light this, and holy moly, next thing you know, you got a fire. It's like really, really cool. So we started a fire in our tent, and the fire spread to the tent, and the tent caught fire, meaning the filthy blanket that we used. And so we did one thing that we always did in a situation like that. That is, when we're caught doing something that we probably get in trouble for, we ran like hell. But again, we're in third grade. Yeah, this is another favorite story of mine. Me and Jim are in third grade. We're at the railroad tracks, about a block and a half from the house. Again, the same industrial area, except there's a grassy knoll up by that slopes up toward the tracks, and guardrail by it. Anyway, we're at the top of this hill, and on this grassy knoll, Jim and I played everything: guns, war, cowboys, Indians, you name it. We played it there. So on this particular day, we're Jim and I are at the top of this hill, and we're gazing down into the valley, right? Got our binoculars. This is what our binoculars were, our hands cupped by our eyes like this. And we're staring down to see what's going on into this valley. And Jim says, "My, there's a bunch of Indians down there." I go, "Holy man, how many?" He goes, "Oh, a couple thousand." And well, what's going on? Let me see. Oh, they got people tied to stakes. They got ladies, and they're naked, and they're tied to stakes, and I think they're going to burn them alive. And I say, "Well, let me look." And of course, I put the binocs to my eyes. I go, "Holy Jesus, man, we got to rescue them." And Jim goes, "Yeah, we got to rescue them." But then I say, "It's just me and you." Oh, and then he says, "Can you imagine how happy they'll be and how grateful they'll be when we rescue them?" And we're thinking, yeah, these are the naked ladies right here tied to the stakes. Anyway, Jim and I think I say something like, "Man, it's just you and me." He says, "That's so what? We're the best there is. We can fight 10,000 Indians, no big deal." So we get up and we start our charge down the hill into the valley filled with several thousand Indians, and apparently a couple of dozen naked ladies tied to stakes, shooting our imaginary guns, wielding our swords, chopping people in half, you name it. And after a couple of moments, and who knows how long, but the slaughter is over. We've eliminated most of the Indians. The others have fled, and all of these naked ladies we untie from the stakes, and yes, they are indeed grateful. Now remember, we're in third grade, so me and Jim had just finished saving about 24 naked ladies, and they're extremely grateful. And so we turned to each other and go, "Well, what do we do now?" And I think we both said at the same time, "Let's go home and get some supper." Ah, come on. There's 24 naked ladies, really, really grateful. What do we do? Yeah, we're going to go home and get some supper. Well, again, we're in third grade. I'm saying 8, 9 years old. At least we knew that we should be saving ladies, that they should be naked, and that they would be grateful. So let's go to the next one. Okay. I had a paper route from 5th through 8th grade. There was a street, one small street on it that I had to deliver to one house, and it was actually right in the middle of factories, and there were only about 6 houses on this block. Others you could see had been torn down because the sidewalks were still there, going up to front porches and stuff like that. But this one house was the only one left on this one side of the block. And it was kind of run down. I mean, it was run down. It wasn't quite like this, but this is what I pictured it as this rundown shack inhabited by scary people who kidnap children and tortured them in their basement, and then fed them only watered down soup. So I'd get close to this thing, to this house, and I never ever went up to it, very closely. Maybe 5, 10 feet away, and I just threw the paper onto the porch and then ran away as fast as I could. I did not want to be caught by the crazy, evil, mean people who tortured kids. And you can see, I think someone is looking out there. Yeah, very mean person, right? Let's go to the next one. On that same street, at the corner, there was a plating factory, and behind it was a small parking lot. But again, I'm in 5th, 6th grades, and to me, that parking lot is the biggest, most incredibly beautiful sports stadium in the world. And in that stadium, whenever I walked by it, my mind went, and I was just daydreaming about everything, mostly about being a sports hero. So if I was playing baseball, in my mind, it looked a lot like Wrigley Field, pretty cozy, close in. But in my mind, it's always it's a number of things. I'm always hitting homers, grand slams, putting our team ahead. But the greatest thing is it's always the last inning of the 7th game of the World Series. The game is tied. The opposing team is up. There's 2 outs. And there's 3 balls on the batter. And they've got a guy on third. Well, they got the bases loaded is what they do. They've got the bases loaded. And then I come in as the relief pitcher. Again, there's 3 balls, no strikes, bases loaded. We're going to say that there's no outs, okay? They've got the bases loaded. This guy's got 3 balls on him. Game is tied. And we're up by 1. I'm sorry, we're up by 1. But they're about to take the lead. And then they would win the World Series. And they're at home because it's the bottom of the 9th. So I'm called in as the world's greatest relief pitcher. I get on the mound and supremely confident. Nothing, no one's going to hit anything off me. Well, I fire my first ball, it's a strike. I fire the second, he swings and misses. I fire the third, strike 3, he's out. Next batter comes up. That's three pitches. 3 pitches, 3 strikes, and the guy is out. 1 out. Base is still loaded. We're up by 1, bottom of the 9th. The opposing team is up. Next batter up, the biggest slugger on their team. Home runs constantly, RBIs, base hits, like coming out the whatever. I wind up fire in a curveball that just starts outside, just veers in. Strike 1. Next one is a sinker. It's sort of lobbed kind of high, and then it just drops right across the plate, right across his waist. Strike 2. And then the final pitch, a blazing fastball that the guy can't even see. It is so fast that it almost rips the catcher's mitt off of his hand. That's strike 3. It's another 3 pitches. That's 3 strikes, 2 outs. They still got bases loaded. We're up by 1, and they got their last hitter up, who's yet another monster and who can clobber anything. He's a 375 percentage. His batting percentage is 375. So that means this guy's like a great hitter, right? And but doesn't faze me. Strike 1, strike 2, another 3 pitches, and the guy is out. The back in our hometown, which is Chicago, everybody's erupting in the cheers. There are some of our fans in the stadium, and of course there are lovely ladies, girls, whatever, that are just in love with me, and they want to kiss me, and so it's cool. I'm a hero, and I save the World Series for our team. Another same situation. That vacant lot, that parking lot, I should say. I always envisioned it, of course, as the sports stadium, but always, playing football there too. And I was the greatest halfback ever in the history of ever. Ever. The greatest moves, glide, fast. I was fluidity in motion, no jerky motions. Everything was just fluid, lovely, graceful, beautiful. Anyway, we're playing for the championship. We're at home in our stadium in Chicago. We're down by 3. We're down by 5 points. We are at our own 2-yard line. Final play of the game. There's only 5 seconds left. That's how we got the ball. Of course, I am the world's greatest halfback. They get the ball to me. It's a pitch out. I manage to make it around the corner, deke some guys out just beautifully, just like Gale Sayers used to do, but 12 times better, maybe 13 times better. I deke one time. There's 2 guys, and they're blocking my way. I want to go through them, but if I go through them, they'll tackle me. So I deke left, I deke right, I deke left, almost simultaneously. And the 2 guys, each one of them goes in a different direction, each of the defenders. And what does that leave? A massive, giant hole for me, and I just glide right through it. Anyway, I wind up getting to, the 30, the opponent's 30, 20-yard line. Pretty soon, the rest of the team catches up with me, and there's 11 guys on me. Then my teammates come and get on me. Now there's like 21 guys on me. The bad guys, meaning the opponents, trying to tackle me. My guys trying to push me into the end zone. Anyway, after great exertions and having my entire uniform ripped off by the opposing players, left only with a jockstrap and bloodied and bruised, I squeak into the end zone, score 6 points, and win the championship for the city of Chicago. Tell me that ain't great. There are beautiful, beautiful girls in the stand, and all they want to do is kiss me and hug me. And that's it. I'm a hero. Greatest halfback ever in the history of ever. This is a guy we called Mr. Don't Make It the Noise. He there are a lot of older people in the neighborhood, retirees and stuff like that, or maybe not even retired, but a lot of them just didn't really appreciate kids, or they didn't like kids making noise. So we would play in the alleys. And we'd play out on the streets. We'd play football on the streets. We'd play baseball or softball in the alleys. We'd play hide and seek everywhere. We'd play guns. We played war everywhere. I mean, we're in the alleys. We're on the street. We're running in and out of yards and really having a good time. And, sometimes there's 4 or 5 of us. Sometimes there's close to a dozen. That's how many kids there were around. And what do kids do when they're playing well and having fun? Well, first off, they're laughing. Second, they're shouting and screaming with joy, and they're just exclaiming and having a wonderful time, because that's what kids do, or having fun. Well, Mr. Don't Make It the Noise just couldn't abide it. He was, I believe he was an Eastern European. He had an accent, and any time we're in the alley, he'd come out and yell at us. Don't make it the noise. You make it the noise. Don't make it the noise. You make it the noise. And he'd tell us to go to the park or something. And, excuse me, this guy sometimes called the cops on us. He called the cops on kids playing in the alleys. We, at first, we were kind of scared of the guy, but after a while we realized that, well, you know what, cops ain't going to come for kids playing baseball in an alley. Just ain't gonna happen. So after a while, after the first couple of times where he threatened us with calling the cops, first couple of times I think we might have been a little scared, but after that we realized it wasn't going to happen, and we just ignored the guy. But he would always come out. Don't you make it the noise. Don't make it the noise. Go, park, play. Go park, play. Play park. Go, play park, go. Total goofball. Yeah, these are altar boys goofing off. This is a story about my brother Steve and one of his pals. Being an altar boy was kind of, somewhat of a special thing. It was sort of an exalted position. You got to dress up in these costumes, vestments, I guess they were called. And, some younger kids looked up to you. You're in mass, you're in church, and you're holding these giant candlesticks. You're helping the priest. You're pouring wine into the stuff, maybe pouring water on the priest's hands, and you're mumbling prayers. And back at that time, they're in Latin. So, you're somewhat exalted. My brother Steve and one of his pals spent, I think, 3 weeks studying to be an altar boys when they were in 5th grade. And they were accepted to be altar boys. But they screwed up royally, really big time. There's one point, so their first assignment was to kneel for hours straight at an Easter vigil, like a couple of days before for Easter, maybe even Good Friday. And so they're in the church at the altar, and people are coming into the church. Easter vigil is a time where people can come in and pray. So these two guys are kneeling. They're maybe 20 feet apart from each other. There's actually 3 of them. But before they had gotten out, and again, this is their first assignment as altar boys, before they had gotten out into the main church, into the church so that they could kneel and then pray along with the rest of the people, they had seen a bag of hosts, the unconsecrated hosts. They bought these things by the truckload, basically. And so they saw a bag of these things, and they stuffed their pockets. They would have had pockets here and pockets there. They stuffed their pockets full of these little hosts, these little wafers, bread wafers. And they got out, and they're kneeling and praying like that, going through the motions. And then after a while, one of the guys got the idea that maybe they could shoot these hosts at each other. So he takes a host out of his pocket, holds it between his fingers like that, and then flicks it with this finger. And the hosts fly. They're actually pretty aerodynamically sound. They go, woo! They spin and they fly a decent distance. Well, another guy shoots one back at his pal. They're holding them like that, I guess. That's what it would be. Anyway, and next thing you know, all 3 of them are off at the front of this altar, kneeling, supposed to be holy, pious, and mumbling prayers. And instead, they're shooting hosts. They're flicking and shooting hosts at each other. Well, the Monsignor came in. He happened to see him doing this, and of course, that would have driven him berserk. And it did. He yelled at him. He didn't actually hit him, but he yelled at him and told them how disappointed he was in them. And that ended their brief careers as altar boys. It was over. I guess if you caught throwing hosts at each other, your days as an altar boy are over. This is we had a couple of, actually 2 of them in the neighborhood. They're called Gossage Grills, small, locally owned hamburger joints. And they had good, they sold these things were like 20 cents a piece or maybe even cheaper. So you could get a bag of these things for $2. And they were very thin, but they came loaded with grilled onions and wrapped in paper. And, they smelled absolutely delicious. And they were delicious. So if your ma had money, she'd send my brother Steve out to get like a bag of these things, and there were 7, 8 in the bag. And again, they were like less than $2 for a bag of 7 of these things. And he'd come home and we'd just gobble them down and we'd be in heaven. Anyway, they had grill men, and usually they were younger guys in their early 20s. One day, and there's a story in the book, and I'll get into that sometime later, but one of these guys they used to cut the onions right there to grill them. They didn't have them pre-cut, so they cut them right there. And we had one guy who cut his finger while he was cutting an onion up, and blood starts spurting out. And this guy continues with his job. He wraps it up, and he didn't have Band-Aids or anything. He just wraps his finger up with a towel or an apron, and he continues to serve us. He gives us our drinks in plastic cups, and there's blood on the sides on the glasses. Really disgusting. And it's a long story, but that actually happened. And when he finally gave us our change, when he checked us out, he gave us, from our dollar bills, change was, spotted with blood. And we kept walking down the street, and we called it blood money. This is the final slide of this one. This is, again, this is an alley. These are 16 feet wide. This is the alley actually on the block that I lived on. We would have lived right there. 16 feet wide, and these were our playgrounds. Wonderful, wonderful places. And you can see that if you're playing softball or baseball, there'd be home plate, first base, second base, third base, home. And there'd be a pitcher up. Anyway, you had to hit the ball straight. If you veered it off here or veered it off there, it's in somebody else's yard. It's in a yard. That means you got to climb over the gate or open the gate. Some of the gates are locked. Some of these yards got dogs in them. And so it was a really great learning experience, because you really had to hit the ball straight. You only had 16 feet. But the alleys were also great places. We roamed them on the 4th of July, blowing stuff up. We played hide and seek in the alleys. We had water balloon fights in the alleys. Played touch football in the alleys. In the winters, we just trudged through these things and had a wonderful time. So the alleys were indeed our playgrounds. And a lot of the older people would come out saying, "Why don't you go play at the park? Why don't you play at the park?" Well, we didn't want to, because these alleys are cold. Now you got to understand. Look at this. You can roam up and down these things. People would load these with junk. Now here's a couple of old pieces of old furniture, and you could find all kinds of stuff in the alleys. Stuff that you could use, maybe pieces of wood that you could use for something. It's just great. There were untold adventures to have in these alleys. So that's it. Let's see. Let's go to the next one. Here's what I want to let you know. Hey, if you like this, subscribe to the channel. Tell your friends about the book, about these videos. If you grew up Catholic, you're going to love this stuff, especially if you grew up Catholic in the 50s, 60s, or 70s, because you'll be able to relate to it. That's when the nuns were at the height of their authority, power, whatever. Back then, and that's when they could still hit kids. So you can go to Amazon and buy Disturbers Row. You can also go to my website, which is disturbersrow.com. You can see the other books that I've written. I got Stinky Feet series and a few other ones, and maybe you'll be interested in some of those. Anyway, as always, have fun and be happy, and thank you for watching.